The next author I was going to read from is one of the greats who worked with a number of different composers in his career, but of course most famously with his brother, and that's Ira Gershwin. Started writing lyrics, I think, in the 19-teens and continued writing, I think, up into the 50s at least, if not 60s. Outlived George Gershwin by more than 45 years. So he ended up working with a large number of writers of music and pretty much always worked very closely with whatever composer he was focusing on at the moment. So the most of the lyrics that I've looked at of his are all in a book that he actually put together of his own lyrics and provided commentary on most of the selections. And he kind of grouped them into little sets of themes. The book's called Lyrics on Several Occasions, a selection of stage and screen lyrics written for sundry situations and now arranged in arbitrary categories to which have been added many informative annotations and disquisitions on their why and wherefore, their whom for, their how, and matters associative. Kind of gives you an idea of his sense of humor. And his fondness for vocabulary and creative rhyming and so forth. The set that I picked out here is from a section of the book that he calls a set of sagas, and they're basically story songs of various kinds, written for a variety of different shows. So they're more or less in a narrative type form. The first one is from 1936 in a show, one of the shows just called the Ziegfeld Follies, that was put together as a sort of review of songs and dances. Several of them were done in the 30s, one each year. And this one is sung by a character named Judy Canova. Or, I'm sorry, the actress's name was Judy Canova, and her character's name was Ma. And she's singing to her 3 sons in a Kentucky cabin. It's called The Ballad of Babyface McGinty, who bit off more than he could chew. Oh, Babyface McGinty, his story I will tell. At 7, his heart was flinty, though he looked as cute as hell. He stole his granny's false teeth to buy himself some gin. The games of the other kids he'd shelve. He was a pappy when he was 12. Oh, Babyface McGinty was not what he might have been. McGinty ruled St. Louis when he was 21. To see the police go screwy was Baby's idea of fun. Each day he'd hold a bank up. He dealt in booze and how. Machine guns he owned filled 40 trucks, and he had hidden $3 million. Said Babyface McGinty, oh, I'm going places now. He won new territory each hour of the day. Soon Baby was in his glory. 10 governors were in his pay. He killed, he raped, he arsoned, but never he did swing. He put Jesse James right on the shelf. The devil, he acted like God himself. Was none but feared McGinty, and no one could do a thing. Get Babyface McGinty, said Mr. Morgenthau. He cheated on taxes, didn't he? That's one thing we can't allow. They shot McGinty. They never gave a damn. For you're up against true maniacs when you don't pay up your income tax. The moral of McGinty is, don't cheat your Uncle Sam. So long, goodbye, McGinty. On one thing you relax. You could get away with murder, but not your income tax. A little reminder of things we were probably all working with a little bit earlier this month. This next one is called The Jolly Tar and the Milkmaid. And a tar is a word for sailor, I think, probably more in British English than American English. This is from a show called A Damsel in Distress from 1937. This one, the music was written by George Gershwin. And it's a song in the style of Renaissance madrigals. So it's sung, in the show, it's sung in a castle by a small chorus, I think, calling themselves the Belfer Society for the Preservation of Traditional English Ballads, Madrigals, and Rounds. There was a jolly British tar who met a milkmaid bonny. He said, "How beautiful you are, with a hey and a nonny, with a hey and a nonny. Such golden hair I ne'er did see, with lips to shame the cherry. Oh, buxom milkmaid, marry me, with a down-a-dairy, down-a-dairy." "Our hearts could rhyme," said she. "'Tis flattered I'm," said she. "But oh, ah me, you see, I happen to be the mother of 3, a wife already, and mother of 3. The jolly tar, he laughed a laugh. "'Tis for the best, my bonny, that you won't be my better half. With a hey and a nonny. I near forgot, on seeing you, that I've a wife in Kerry, in Spain, and also Timbuktu, with a down-a-dairy, down-a-dairy. You've got me thinking twice. Goodbye to shoes and rice. For oh, ah me, just now you see, I happen to be the husband of 3, a spliced already, and husband of 3, the husband of 3. In his commentary on this one, he says, the introduction of a group of madrigal singers into the show permitted the writing of a couple of pieces in that style. And he incorporated similar phrases from 16th century songs that he researched and even looked up to see if there were definitions for some of the words that seemed like nonsense words, like dairy, down, nani nani, and he actually lists all of the references that were found to those kinds of words in the Oxford English Dictionary. So he really put a lot of thought and effort into writing lyrics in such a wide variety of styles, and understood the context of all the styles that he was imitating and all the vocabulary that he was using. This next one was written with the composer Kurt Weill, who wrote a number of musical shows as well as a lot of serious classical music, symphonies and chamber music and such. But this was from a show called Lady in the Dark in 1941. And this is sung by a character named Liza Elliott to a group of children. And he says, Kurt Weill and I were on the second dream sequence of the show, and we came to a spot where Liza and some children were alone on the stage, and I suggested that here a sung fairy tale might be incorporated. So I began thinking of the legendary magical gimmicks and concluded that the kind used so frequently in the Arabian Nights entertainments might do the trick. One where in a spot young man answers brilliantly one or several loaded questions and reaps from an amazed and delighted potentate rewards of non-decapitation, bushels of diamonds and rubies, a harem, and other desiderata. So this is called The Princess of Pure Delight. The prince in orange, and the prince in blue, and the prince whose raiment was of lavender hue, They sighed and they suffered and they tossed at night for the neighboring princess of pure delight, who was secretly in love with a minstrel. Her father, the king, didn't know which to choose. There were 2 charming suitors he'd have to refuse. So he called for the dean of his sorcerers and inquired which one was to win her hand, which they always did in those days. My king, here's a riddle. You test them tonight. What word of 5 letters is never spelled right? What word of 5 letters is always spelled right? I'm sorry. What word of 5 letters is always spelled wrong? The one who can answer will be wedded ere long. That will be 20 gulden, please. The king called the 3, and he told them the test. The while his fair daughter kept beating her breast, he put to them the riddle. They failed as he feared. Then all of a sudden the minstrel appeared. I'll answer that riddle, cried the singer of song. What's never spelled right in 5 letters is wrong. And it's right to spell wrong, W-R-O-N-G. Your Highness, the princess belongeth to me, and I love her anyway. Be off with you, villain, the king cried in rage, for my princess a prince, not a man from the stage. But sire, said the minstrel, 'tis love makes me say. No king who's a real king treats lovers this way. It isn't sporting. And if you're no real king, no princess is she. And if she's no princess, then she can wed me. By gad, cried his highness, you handsome young knave, I fear me you're right, and his blessing he gave. And a trumpeter began to trumpet. The princess then quickly came out of her swoon, and she looked at her swain, and her world was in tune, and the castle soon rang with cheer and with laughter, and of course they lived happily ever